Chief guest of today's function, Mr.K.P. Padmakumar, ex-chairman of Federal Bank and currently Executive Director of Muthoot Finance. Founder President of Calicut Management Association, Sri V.K.S. Menon. Vice Presidents, Mr. Mohandas, Mr. Thomas. Joint Secretary, Mr. Jacob, Mr. Anil Kumar, members of Calicut Management Association, ladies and gentlemen, and also friends from Federal Bank. Contributing to nation building by igniting the passion to excel. That is the theme of Calicut Management Association for the year 2011-2012. In line with the theme, we have had various speakers speak on the subject, My Life, My Message. Today, we have an authority in the field of banking to talk to us about My Life, My Message. The other day, I was telling somebody that on 25th, we are going to have Mr. K.P. Padmakumar as our speaker. And he immediately said, a person who has retired from Federal Bank, he told me in 6 years that Mr. Padmakumar has headed or acted as chairman of Federal Bank, he has transformed Federal Bank from an ordinary, normal bank to a high caliber bank which can compete with any new generation bank in the industry today. And that is one of the biggest achievements I think Mr. Padmakumar has to his credit. The purpose of organizing these talks, My Life, My Message, is basically to inspire young people to think big, to ignite passion within the young people to achieve greater things in life. And we have had various speakers on the subject, My Life, My Message. And by uploading these talks, the video of these talks in YouTube and on Facebook, we were able to reach quite a number of young people in the last few months. I'm happy to say, as on yesterday, the number of young people who have viewed on YouTube our uploads has exceeded 9,800. Almost every day, 100, 150, 100 to 200 people are watching the videos that we have uploaded. And today, we are going to have another significant speaker who is going to inspire a lot of young people in the days to come.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Roshan Kainadi, Mr. Anil Kumar, Mr. V.K.S. Menon, Mr. Mohandas, and members of the CMA, my erstwhile colleagues from Federal Bank whose presence I acknowledge, my colleagues from Muthoot Group who are also available here in some numbers. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. It is very, very seldom that somebody gets an opportunity to traverse the river of life much after the halo, which he thinks is the halo of accomplishments, have started wearing off. I demitted office of Federal Bank 7 years ago. And during this period, although I have tried to be active, it is what I did, I believe, in Federal Bank which has brought me here. This is a very, very rare thing because in the position in which I am today, I can arrogate to myself total freedom to speak without inhibition on men, matters and memoirs. This is a privilege which is very rare, and this is an experience which is exhilarating to me, for which I shall eternally be grateful to Calicut Management Association and Mr. Mohandas in particular. And let me say the sweetness of this will linger with me till my last breath. All of us, when we look back on life, try to see whether there is a golden formula. And I believe there is no golden formula in life. There are just lessons. And I believe that people like me who cannot talk about messages. Message is a very, very strong word. Only the father of the nation could say that my life is my message. So, I have about an hour and a half to speak. In the next 1 hour and 1.5 hours that I will be utilizing to roar or traverse the river of life backwards. I may touch upon individuals, episodes, the choices I made in my life, the consequence of those choices. And some of them may reveal to you some truths about life in general. And if that happens, and it engenders in you some thinking, I think our evening's exercise will be fully rewarded. So I would rather style this speech as reflections on life, personal and official, rather than saying that there is a message in it. I will be traversing the life through my childhood, adolescence, official life, and my current sunset years, if you want to call it that. I was born into a family of 8 children. Average middle class family, somewhat moderately asset rich, but totally deficient in cash flows. Our fortunes rose and sank with the price of coconuts. One of the earliest memories of mine is that after the harvest of the coconut, which during, as all of you know, February, March, April months, there will be a rich harvest of coconuts, which meant a lot of prosperity in the family. In the convent, not in the real sense of the term where you could afford to buy a 4-wheeler or anything. One of the earliest memories of the coconut trader by name Abu coming and negotiating the price of coconut with my mother and handing over to her a wad of notes. The thickness of that notes either brought a lot of satisfaction or some glumness depending upon the thickness, of course. I prosecuted my studies up to 5th standard in Ganpat, private Ganpat High School, which we call Kurukangada even now. It is situated in Panniyangara. Very sylvan surroundings where it was a thatched shed with benches put on the mud. I studied up to the 5th standard in that school. Have any of you tried to remember what is the earliest memory that you have of an episode in your life? Earliest memory that you have in your life. I have tried this, something which has been imprinted in me. Maybe I was just about 4 years old at that time. Somehow I came into possession of a cuffling, one cuffling with some stone studded on that. I was fidgeting with this, and in the process it fell down into the sand. Sand below in the classroom. I lost it in the process of trying to retrieve it because it went deeper into the sand. I cried hoarse. Annapurna teacher came and consoled me like a mother would console the son. This is my earliest memory. Thereafter I went to Ganpat High School, not in the same campus, where I prosecuted my studies up to the 10th standard SSLC. I was a very good student, secured scholarship, but somewhere during 9th standard to 10th standard, something happened on which I have not been able to put my finger on. I started declining. I was supposed to be a sure shot of first class in the SSLC. I missed it. And when I went to secure my SSLC book, Mr. O.K. Kamaran Nambiar, the headmaster of the school, those days headmasters used to wear black dress, black coats, dhoti plus a black, this one. Very genial natured man with a steel inside, strict disciplinary. He gave me a look which I am not able to get out of that. That look itself told me, you are worth nothing. Then I went to prosecuted my pre-university in Guruvayurappan College. It has just shifted to Pukkunna. And my ambition was to go for medicine. I couldn't make it because of poor marks again. Then I chose agriculture not because it was my choice subject, because of the easiness with which one could secure employment in those days. So 1962 to 65 I studied, including 1 year professional course in between at the Agricultural College, Trivandrum, passed out in 65, and before the results came, I was appointed as Agricultural Extension Officer, Kuttipuram Block, because there was a shortage of Agricultural Extension Officer. My first baby steps into a career. As Agricultural Extension Officer on a temporary assignment, my biggest task was selling pump sets, educating farmers, selling seeds, laying out demonstration plots, etc. And one vivid memory I carry with me today. Early in the morning, I start my walk from Valanjeri to Adavanad through the rail track. Adavanad is 6 kilometers away. And the village assigned to me was Adavanada village, where famous Alvanjeri Tambrakkal lived. Those of you who have heard Prema Sangeetham of Ullur, he very evocatively mentions Alvanjeri Tambrakkalilund, Ayyan Pulayanilund, Adityanilunt, Anukrmiyilunt, Adin Parispuranam. Ullur is saying about Premam. About those days, Alvanjeri Tambrakal, even I think even about 15 to 20 years ago, there was a belief that he is, in many of the tantric things, he was the ultimate authority. So I used to go to that tantric acharya, meet farmers, live with them, sell pump sets. Bharatapuzha was a perennial river in those days, with water even in summer months like this flowing copiously. I am talking about 1965-66. We never encountered a farmer's suicide those days. We never had agricultural prices the way they have been supported by the government these days. The sincerity of the farmer, his resilience when prices start falling. I was witness to all those things. And I worked with the flippancy of the youth, a passion which I don't know where from I got in working. Night and day we worked. And at the end of 7 months, the government thought that I have done enough work to deserve a good service entry, which I am told in those days for a temporary fellow was a very, very rare thing. In the 8th month, promptly I was ousted from service because it was a temporary vacancy. Then 2.5 years I spent with FACT. I don't have much to say about those 2.5 years of stay because much of it I spent trying to get out of FACT, preparing for civil service, etc., etc. Then I got my SBI probationary officer selection and joined SBI in 1968 in Bangalore city. A very interesting episode happened on the day I reported for duty. I thought I have ultimately reached El Dorado. Those days, everyone thought that State Bank service is second only to the civil service. So you have the flippancy of the youth, the arrogance that comes to you when you think you have achieved something very great. And with all this, with a blue shirt, properly attired, I walked into then he was called the agent in Bangalore city. With expectation, some trepidation in mind. Chari looked at me. Chari later on became the managing director of State Bank of Travancore, a terror in State Bank of India circles, a man who lost his ICS selection only because of his poor eyesight. Brilliant fellow. Towering personalities in banking. Chari looked at me as if I was a worm which has crawled out of a stone. Then asked me, who are you? I said, I am a probation officer who has come to report for duty. He just showed me the hand like this. Go, wait outside. He didn't say anything more. So you can imagine the shattering experience that a young fellow like me would have described it later on in my life. But somehow it happened that it was not a habit of Mr. Basu. It is sometimes it is very good that you bring people to the floor level to make them realize where they stand. And if egos are driving you forward, let that ego be busted. Then State Bank of India, it was with which I spent 27 years working in India and abroad. State Bank is a very good learning ground for you. All that I have imbibed in my system in terms of understanding of banking, understanding of economics, understanding of the nation's state of affairs, etc., I would owe to the learning that I received from State Bank of India. State Bank also gave me an opportunity to work abroad as treasury manager, handling some 36 various currencies of the world, interacting with various types of people across the globe. Wonderful learning experience, which actually enabled me to claim that I have become a banking professional. When I look back on those earlier years in State Bank of India, there is a very famous saying which I am very fond of quoting. Of all the arts known to man, the best is managing money. I talk about this in various, when I address the students of various management institutes, etc., as to how banking is different from other professions in terms of its ability to facilitate touching of the lives of so many people. The decision you make as a banker, how it can transform the life of an individual in terms of the prosperity that it can bring to him, etc. And I have been able to, over a period of time, lend a helping hand to many entrepreneurs, many successful industrialists, and not to speak of very many average small fellows. After I became chairman of the Federal Bank, one day I myself and my wife, we never lived in Alway first. We always lived in Ernakulam, excepting about 6 months. One day both of us were buying vegetables from Palarivattam market. And somebody walked up to me and asked me, "Do you remember me?" It took me some time to recollect his face. So when I was branch manager of SBI's MG Road branch, Ernakulam, this man had availed a small facility for making steel nelavilakku out of the steel that he was buying from the market. And the limit I remember at that time was just about 25,000 rupees. Subsequently, he prospered. We enabled him to prosper, and he became somewhat quite rich in terms of the diversifications he could effect. Then later on, at the time I met him, he told me all the stories of how life has changed thanks to the money that the State Bank of India gave. The only thing I am underlying is money is the engine, or rather the fuel for the engine of growth. And those of us who are dabbling in finance often forget the fact that the right decision that we take can make or mar the life of an individual, unless it is of course right. Then the State Bank, after the foreign assignment, I came back to corporate office, central office, took over assignment of being in charge of the mutual funds, funds management, etc., where I could say that I developed intimate knowledge about the Indian capital markets and also about funds management with all its theoretical underpinnings. Then, by the time my 5th year of stay with the SBI Mutual Fund was coming to an end, there was the threat of ourselves going back to the state which meant that you are going back to your, because 5 years I stayed with SBI Mutual Fund, nearly 4.5 years abroad. So you were sort of away from the regular banking. So many of the colleagues of mine who were in SBI Mutual Fund, almost all of us were caught by the bug of leaving State Bank for fresh pastures. There were innumerable opportunities in funds management. So many private mutual funds were coming up. But some inner voice told me that I should stay to mainstream banking. These are turning points in one's life. So at the age of 59, I took that big decision to leave State Bank. I had a daughter to be married off. She was still prosecuting studies. What savings I could get from my foreign assignment in Bahrain, I had spent on renovating my in-laws' house. I had not built a house of my own. But there was an inner urge to see that the time has come to take that call which is from inside. So disregarding all the advices I received, I took the break, resigned from State Bank of India and walked into Federal Bank. The year 1995, March 26th, April 26th. I walked into a veritable hell, if you want to call it that. My colleagues in Federal Bank who are here, that's why I said I can talk with absolute detachment today. Veritable hell in terms of there were politicians in the board, retired IAS officers in the board. Each of them sort of continuing their agenda. So I became a fly in the ointment in no time. I was appointed as executive director, but disregarding all these things, I did something which proved to be my greatest strength in the later years when I took over as chairman. I traveled the length and breadth of the country, met all the staff, all the branch managers, interacted with them, interacted with the customers. And it came a stage where I could claim that I knew every manager. At that time it was around 330 or so branches by name. So despite the problems and some people wanting to eject me out, I continued, battled on, and some directors thought that I am the right man to lead the bank in the year 1999. I took over as chairman on 1st January 1999. And what was the reward waiting for me? March 31st, the balance sheet has to be published. There was a big hole in the balance sheet. 52 crores loss. And those times, this is a listed company at that time, you cannot think of publishing a balance sheet of a bank. Subsequently, these things have happened in our country with a loss position. So we discussed in the board and tried to dip into the reserves. transfer 50 odd crores from the reserve and then report a technical profit of 2 crores. But we have to get the approval of RBI for that. So armed with the board's decision, I, along with C.P. John, who is the current ED of the bank, we go to the Reserve Bank of India. I get dirty looks all around. I walked into the CGM's office, who is the person to take the decision. He perhaps has been properly briefed. He virtually threw the paper on my face. Another turning point. Within those few moments when you are facing this kind of a personal rebuff, the like of which you have not experienced in the whole of your life, that also, after giving your life to the bank in whatever manner you could do, you can understand the revulsion that was within me. But that ignited something. Then I took the decision that I shall avenge this. Came back, naturally RBI had to approve it. Came back and started on a journey, on a marathon, which I call federal marathon, taking every employee into confidence. Employee perquisites were cut. We started trimming expenditure right through. And those of you who are aware of this, we took the decision to constrict the balance sheet, the like of which I don't think many companies, corporations have done, as a strategy to get over the problem. You reduce your size of the balance sheet in the larger interests of improving the operational efficiency. The employees responded magnificently. Every one of them agreed to the steps that I took. And on the day when we announced these results, I also announced, because no bonus could be paid, but ex gratia payment was released despite the bank's very, very difficult position. So the employees knew that here is a man who is there to take care of them in the good times. They responded as one team, and first year itself we turned around the bank, reported a profit of 26 crores when the balance sheet was finalized. So as a part of the avenging process, if you want to call it that, I started envisioning for this bank a different kind of a positioning. The old generation private sector banks, they have 101 legacy problems. We had the employees whose average age was about 46. But quality staff we had. I thought this bank has to be repositioned as a technology savvy bank. And my earliest attempts at automation of the branch started. We hired a team, then we debated, and finally, instead of Mr. Narayana Murthy, with whom I had very good friendship, he 2 or 3 times called me. He said, I have my Finacle software, you please take it. And they invited me as a chief guest in one of the Infosys functions, which I still look back with pride, because Infosys had not become what it is today. And the point I am making is, if you decide to automate, what do? You go, why do you want to reinvent the wheel? You go buy the ready-made software available. Ignoring the fact that your average level of age of the employees, given what it is, it will be very, very difficult to thrust this sophisticated software on them. So we took the very, very appropriate decision that we shall develop a software of our own. which we christened as FedSoft. It was essentially a workflow automation. What the clerk sitting in the counter was doing in terms of mechanical operations, physical operation, was converted into a mechanical operation. We computerized the branches one by one, in spite of the environment being hostile, because vis-a-vis the employees, we had not reached a position where we had total freedom of computerization. I still remember the Palarivattam branch, which I opened with a lot of fanfare on a very, very rainy morning in June. Big agitation was going on outside against computerization. Much water has flowed under the Kallai river since then. As all of you know, all those oppositions have gone. But ultimately what happened was that we had the first mover advantage. When I started rolling out the ATMs, first time in the history of our country, rural ATMs were getting established. None of my colleagues here from Federal Bank know the trepidation I had in mind when I established that ATM in Perumbavoor. The first ATM in Perumbavoor, because all other ATMs we were putting in cities like Chennai or Ernakulam or Coimbatore, places like that, where you had the customers who are sort of savvy with these things. Then concurrent with the automation, we also started upgrading the appearance of the branches. It's all result of because surging improvement in the working results of the bank. So I still vividly remember Ernakulam South branch, we upgraded it, cost spending some 27 lakhs, a princely amount in those days. Full granite flooring, granite top, fully air conditioned, and we had a bevy of beauties managing. It was almost a ladies' branch. So with great pride, we opened the branch. 3 days later, I get a telephone call. Mr. Chairman, why did you do this? A harried customer, a senior citizen. He said, when we used to go to the branch, because so many of our senior citizens, as you know, going to the bank is a regime, sometimes twice, thrice a week, where they are able to meet with people. Otherwise, they will be fighting with their wives. So I used to go enjoy talking to these beautiful girls. Now, when I go with the check, they don't even look at me. They get the check like this, go on pushing some buttons down below, I get my transaction completed in no time. Why did you do this? Tiruvalla. I thought Tiruvalla, you have every second house is a NRI house. All the Achayans there, I thought, are savvy with the ATM, etc. But no. One of the poorest daily transactions in ATM was in Tiruvalla. It took time to educate, it took time to make these people come. I am talking about the evolution of the whole process. Now it all looks very, very simple because much has happened since then. These are some of the encounters that you experience as you go along. The Federal Marathon I ran like that. Then my finest moment came, the avengement that I talked about. Because of the turnaround of Federal Bank, the Federal Reserve Bank of India Employees Association or Union, I don't know, it's a BEFI affiliated one, called me to address in the central office hall of Reserve Bank of India. That was after 2 or 3 years after that encounter with the CGM happened. By the time bank had become tech savvy, people had started getting noticed about the technical revolution that we were making, the pioneering efforts that we took in taking automation to the grassroots level as everyone was wanting to do. And in the meeting there were a bevy of CGMs along with this particular CGM. It was a very happy moment for me. As all of you know, Federal Bank had a 24% stake with ICICI as 24% stakeholder. The major shareholder, the rest was widely held. What I am going to speak is the internal story which I don't think any of you know. But the pressure from the major shareholder started developing in terms of the most strange request I received was that I was asked to permit them to establish their ATM in our premises. It's better to do hari-kari than that, isn't it? I refused. Then relating to NRI business, some accommodation was required. I resisted. So my term was coming to an end. First 3 years, somehow I don't know who was responsible. I got only 1 year extension instead of straight 3 years. But we carried on regardless. Then the pressure started mounting on me. I became persona non grata, which ultimately led to a situation where they thought that I am the fly in the ointment. I was asked to induct into the bank at senior level somebody whom the board had already rejected as unfit. The context in which I am speaking this, because by the 4th or 5th year of my stay, I stayed for 6 years, the steam has started building up in our relationship. And in the final 6th year, there was a vertical division in the board. 3 directors wanting me to continue, giving me extension, and others somewhere like Kayala Paratatayanga, not here nor there. But essentially, they were all wanting to toe the ICICI line. So at the end of my 6th term, we had a corporate battle with ICICI, in which also the entire members of the staff stood with me like a rock. Opinions still could differ as to whether what I did was right. Many people even now say that as chairman, you shouldn't have encouraged this kind of a corporate battle to come. But I had my own reasons. So we won the election in the AGM, but due to the factors which were beyond our control, legal intervention took place and my term came to an end on 31st of December 2004. So the federal saga or the marathon that I described, leave aside the 6 years is a very good time or a good period for someone to do something. When I look back, What gives me satisfaction is that how was I able to get this done? The real turnaround of a bank, when the environment was hostile to you in terms of the ruling high rates of interest, you had a dissensions in the board, and the market itself in terms of credit offtake, etc., was not the one that you are experiencing today. About 12 years ago, Richard Barrett wrote a book on liberating the corporate soul. Wonderful book. I am quoting this because what I achieved, which I think I achieved in Federal Bank, is primarily due to releasing of the corporate soul. A few minutes ago, I said during my travels as executive director, I discovered the soul of that bank. And those 6 magnificent years, there was a vision which every employee was chasing under my leadership. The vision of the employee, the vision of the corporation, they were congruent. It liberated a lot of energy, or rather released a lot of energy. So when I look back, what I have achieved is in terms of successfully liberating the corporate soul of Federal Bank. Otherwise, I would not have been able to cut the wages, perquisites, etc. And when it reached a stage when we were in a position to pay, we started becoming the biggest paymaster as far as private sector banks were concerned. Many of the private sector banks, of which I was the chairman, association, started complaining to me. My employees are showing your example, asking for more. The lesson out of this is that if you take them along, if your HR practices are what it should be, miracles can happen in any organization. After that, of course, and after demitting office of Federal Bank, I had few offers to go to Africa to head some banks. Because of my tussle with ICICI, no banking within the country was likely to come. Because unknown to my Federal Bank colleagues, I was actually committing harakiri, fighting a giant supported by Reserve Bank of India. So my exit was very clear, and I knew it. Many of you used to say you are doing this to get your extension, including some of my employees were saying. But the exit was very clear. So I decided what is the option left for me. In the later part I want to say about this. I believe that none of us should retire from work. The tragedy of our country is that on the government sector, 55 is the retirement age. When you are the repository of all the wisdom, you have few more years of active life left. So I decided I have to work again, despite my wife's protestations. So Muthoot I knew very well. So I joined them as executive director in 2005, March 16th. They had close to 200 branches, a loan book of about 600 crores. Today, it is 3,700 branches, 24,000 crores of loan, and come May middle, we will be declaring our net profit, which will be the highest any institution in this state has so far declared. Although I am not supposed to say this because it's a listed company. Because of that, we are also having problems with the regulator trying to throttle us also. That is on the other side. Now, this 7 years of stay in Muthoot, to those of you who are management students or following the management student, is a remarkable story of professionalizing a private company, entirely driven by individuals, into which we try to bring lot of professionalism. 4.5 years ago, I told them that you should list. But the listing took place only year before last, or last year to say precisely. So it has been an experience in transforming the mindset of people. We have 101 private companies here who are in a position and who should be in a position to unlock the energy that they have in terms of their corporate standing, in terms of the investor support they can receive. All that the promoter has to recognize is that with 51%, you still call the shots. Bringing in an outsider, the public as investor, brings in tremendous amount of radical changes in the way we look at problems, in the way we choose our solutions, and finally taking the company to a higher levels of operation. I have been able to do this not because of our efforts alone. Market also turned rapidly in our favor because the gold prices went up. And it has been a remarkable story in terms of professionalizing a partnership concern and then taking it to the level where today it has become the kind of company that it is today. I do not have 8 children. My father died young, so paternal care is alien to me. So my mother, despite the financial difficulties about which I told you, she made us, rather grew us up, inculcated in me tremendous amount of values, which I made use of in leading Federal Bank in the path of rectitude. A remarkable woman with tremendous amount of resilience, who, despite all the odds she faced, was a noble soul. Today, I thank her for today and all that happened to me yesterday. Jayashree walked into my life 37 years ago. Jayashree, correct? '76 to 2012. So, 36 years. She brought with her tremendous amount of Valluvanad and simplicity and an absolute distaste for trappings of office. Somebody used to tell me she always wants to travel third class when she can afford first class. So a lot of the values that I have today, I owe it to her. And when I received the Kerala Management Leadership Award, I dedicated that award to her, saying that she deserves it more than I do. So that is the story of my life so far. As I walk my sunset years, if you want to call it that, when I look back, what are the things that I should say, the lessons that life has taught me? As I mentioned, life never gives you any kind of golden rules, so to say. It's a very famous quotation in Kedopanishad, which is very, very, very relevant for when you start reflecting on what I did. It says, it goes on like this: you are your deep driving desire. As is your desire, so is your will. As is your will, so is your act. As is your act, so is your destiny. I have tried to strictly follow this, believing that all that happens to you ultimately is the result of choices you make. In everyone's life, if you are choosing the choice, you are also responsible for the consequences of the choice. Very often we forget this. So as I said, some of the decisions I took in my life of leaving the very safe grounds of State Bank of India, where you do not have the threat of accountability on anything, and a very safe course was open to you to retire as perhaps Chief General Manager or so. But I decided to start painting a new painting on a fresh canvas, because I thought there is an inner call which tells me that I should be doing it. And when the choice came to me of retiring, again I decided to work. That is the second thing I have always been telling my colleagues, etc. We recruit hundreds of people every day. Our employee strength is about 35,000 today. So when we interview people, very often we ask this question. Some of them are coming to us after 2 years of retirement, etc. And you can essentially make the difference between a fellow who had sat at home for 2 years and the fellow who is just retiring and coming. The man degenerates. The wife will start complaining that this fellow is interfering in everything that he never used to interfere. He becomes a pest in the house. Correct? So they want to get rid of this. Then you look at those of you who have retired, please look at the physique of the persons who have sat at home and the person who was still continuing to work. You both go back to the nature. Does the fish retire? Does the birds retire? They retire only when it's time to say goodbye. So never ever retire. I have been fortunate enough to do a lot of things because circumstances conspired to help me. This is the third thing I want to tell you. If you passionately believe in something and want to achieve this, the whole world conspires to help you. This is a lesson I have learned. So believe in yourself. Some of the other lessons that I have learned. After a stage in life, money becomes inconsequential. Money can never bring you happiness. You know which is the happiest country in the world? It is not the United States. It is not the Swedish Balkan countries where the social system is so advanced. The Sweden, Norway, Finland, etc. It is not those countries. The happiest country in the world today is Puerto Rico. Why? Because they believe every day is your last day in life. Something akin to this kind of a speech, where you have very appropriately called it Life's Reflections and etc. In Carnegie Mellon University in United States, Pittsburgh, there is a system of giving the last lecture. Last lecture it is called. What is this last lecture? This has been continuing for months together. Here a professor is asked to speak on his life or whatever you want to speak, as if today is your last day of life. There is a famous book, Last Lecture by Randy Pausch, worth reading. Here this Randy Pausch is a professor of technology in the Carnegie Mellon University. When his term comes, he is diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, the most virulent cancer form from which very, very few escape. There is a beautiful book on this when he is talking about his life's ambitions. After knowing that he has only 2.5 months to live. So I don't know whether how many of you experienced that last earthquake which struck us. I was eating my lunch at 2:10 that afternoon. Something happened which I thought I was having a giddiness. I shared it with Jayashree. But the point is, it brought in vivid form. Ultimately, everything is so transitory. When you experience that tomorrow you could be gone, that is the way the Puerto Ricans look at life. You enjoy today. I will close with 3 quotations from Mother Teresa, which in more typical way looks at what has been my philosophy of life. People are often unreasonable, illogical, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are successful, you will win some false friends and some true enemies. Succeed anyway. If you are honest and frank, people may cheat you, Be honest and frank anyway. What you spend years building, someone could destroy overnight. Build anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, they may be jealous of you. Be happy anyway. The good you do today, people will often forget tomorrow. Do good anyway. Give the world the best you have, and it may never be enough. Give the world the best you have got anyway. In the final analysis, it is between you and God, and it was never between you and them. Thank you very much.
I think we have had one of the best speakers of the current year. Floor is open for questions.
Sir, I am Ajit Kumar from Federal Bank. I have a question to you, sir. Muthoot is the largest gold loan company operating in India.
Yeah.
Muthoot is the largest gold loan company operating in India. And recently, I think not the last one, the previous RBI monetary policy, they have imposed a sort of restriction. Like they have reduced the loan, to increase the loan to value ratio for gold loan. So in such a situation, what will be the implication of such that regulation, and what will be the future business potential of companies like Muthoot, Manappuram, who are the leading gold loan companies?
It will definitely impact us adversely, and as you know, it is a highly discriminatory regime they have brought about, where banks are allowed to lend at whatever percentage you want to in terms of the LTV, and the restriction is only to NBFCs, especially those who are gold loan NBFCs. And I have a lingering feeling that it is because of jealousy from the banking sector that this has been brought up. So we told the RBI CGM, who has been appointed as the committee, so when I lent against the chain or Mangal Sutra, 60%, and when Federal or some other bank can pay up to 80 or 90 or 100%, what kind of a regime are you looking at? What is the difference between my money and the bank's money? So we are looking at, definitely this has happened primarily to help the banking sector. In the larger interest of saying that it is to force bankers to give loan against gold, maybe that is the exalted desire of the central bank or the government of India. But at this point of time, we are looking at our net profit margins coming down, because when we cannot give what the borrower wants in terms of money against his gold, we cannot charge him high rates of interest also. So profit will come down. We may, as I was mentioning what we did in the case of balance sheet of Federal Bank, we may constrict the balance sheet, but we will still survive. This is see, the ecosystem has been changed dramatically. So we will have to find our own strategies as to how to. So already some NBFCs are doing it like this. You give 60% loan, 20-30% you give as personal loan. The gold is still with you. Correct? So you can get over these regulations also. We have not done it, but I am saying we can do this.
Was it due to the reason that private money lenders, they were charging a little bit higher rate of interest than the commercial banks? Because the overall burden of the borrower will be more. If it takes a
See,
loan,
the one myth that all of us have, as I mentioned, I worked with the farmers, slept with the farmers. No farmer is worried about his rate of interest of the loan. He is only worried about the price he gets for his product. You ask any gold loan borrower in the streets, what he needs is quickness of delivery of the money, simple procedure, and high rate per gram. So our rates of interest, we have capped our rates of interest at 26% now. 26%. That also, unlike commercial banks, it is not monthly compounding. It is quarterly, yearly compounding. So the average yield the borrower is paying, our average yield on our advance is 21% for Muthoot Finance, I am saying. So when you can ask HSBC, SAS, or SIB or your ICICI charge 4% or 3.5% per month on your personal loan, which works out to 42% or 48% per annum. An NBFC which doesn't have access to the deposits, etc., like the banks have, why should they be denied this opportunity? So we told RBI, last week we had a meeting, you impose whatever restrictions you want on us, but make the playing field level. If you are ഞങ്ങളെ മുടന്തനാക്കിയിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ബാങ്കുകാരെയും മുടന്തനാക്കുക. ഇതാ ഞങ്ങൾ പറഞ്ഞ.
Hello, sir. I'm Radhakrishnan. Radhakrishnan, the director of a digital marketing agency in Calicut. Very namaste. So you have come from a very, low grassroots level, career and reached the towering heights. So I have two questions for you. The first one is, when did you feel the pinch of, balancing your work and, life, personal life, and how did you achieve it?
Life-work balance.
Yes.
Work-life balance. Okay. You should ask my wife. Although she still complains that, see, as chairman of the bank, you are forced to travel. So I will go 3 days, 4 days, etc., not at a stretch 5-6 days. She and my daughter were alone at home. So on the day I come back, there will be 2 boxes waiting for me. So I used to dispose them off in the night with her by my side. Not that she was taking any part in the decision making, but much of the work I used to do at home. As chairman of the bank, when I was sitting in corporate office, 6 o'clock I will be with her, evening, unless there is anything, meeting or something. So it's always possible for you to strike a balance. Now, I have a son-in-law working with Hindustan Unilever. He has no work-life balance. Whenever I call them, he is in the factory. He is the factory manager in Chandigarh. So the Hindustan Unilever personal director is a lady, Leena Nair. So one day I spoke to her saying that what kind of a company is this? Why are people working like this? What is the use? See, life is only one. Young age is only one. So this is something you have to work out yourself. And I detest the thought that somebody working late is an efficient worker. And Federal Bank also, when I was chairman, my secretariat used to go home by 5:30. Correct? No, as chairman, I never used to sit late and work, because if I sit late and work, those guys will also have to work. So what about their families? So this is something which you can very scientifically craft for yourself. All this crap of people telling I didn't get time, don't believe this. If you have the mind, you will have the time, you will do it. And I achieved it only by my own self-discipline at working. Certain fastness you acquire in looking at studying files and concluding the meetings in the right time, etc., etc.
Sir, I am Gopalakrishnan. Respected sir, only one thing I like to ask. Quoting your own words, you said, or it's a fact that Federal Bank has grown fantastically during your year, or during your period. Quoting your own word, the success was you are taking confidence of all the staff. You are taking confidence of all the staff.
Yeah.
It is the same mantra you are using in Muthoot now. Two, do you have planning a Muthoot marathon? Third question, your language superb. The way you quote Ulloor Parameswar is fantastic.
Thank you.
What is the secret of that?
Language. See, after our friend from Federal Bank asked about these restrictions which were brought about, So our employees are naturally feeling little uneasy. What is going to happen? Because it means that dramatic change in the business environment. You know what we did? 4 days back, we increased the salaries of the staff. Branch manager, the field level workers, everybody's salary we increased. To send across the message that we are not affected. Number one. Number two, as opposed to banks in Muthoot, we don't take very intelligent people. Mediocrity is our, what you call as the hallmark. When we interview, if somebody is super intelligent, he is straight away rejected. We don't want such people. But ordinary people, you can make them do extraordinary things. That is what we are doing in Muthoot. People will derisively look at Muthoot Finance, etc. These are gold loan companies charging high rates of interest, usurious rates of interest, trade practices are not transparent, etc. We are step by step nullifying all these, what you call as asymmetries in the operation. So, this morning I addressed our 35 branch managers in Calicut here. So you constantly communicate to them. The greatest satisfaction I have today is that there are many hundreds of men and women from the lower strata of society who, because of the poor marks they scored, which again is a circumstance which imposed on them not to study brilliantly. Parentage might have been very low, but I see merit in each of them. And we are making this workforce, and they are loyal to us today. So the way we are running the Muthoot Marathon is that Mediocrity is our hallmark. Make ordinary people do extraordinary things. You can do that. We have proved it. I'll tell you one simple incident. In a place called Haveri in Karnataka, Muthoot Finance branch, which was situated on the national highway, due to some tussle between the corporation and the National Highway Authority, one fine morning these people brought bulldozers to demolish all the buildings on the road. So we are holding gold ornaments worth 12 crores in the branch. Nothing you can do sitting in corporate office. So the branch manager, using his own what you call as innate intelligence, he ran and took a small Kalyana Mandapam there. And he put up a notice that this has happened. We have shifted these ornaments to a branch 24 kilometers away. Those of you who want to release the ornaments, please come here. We will be able to take the pledge within 48 hours, but those who want to release, because somebody's marriage would have been fixed, please give us 24 hours of notice. I was amazed. Nothing we knew. He did everything. And only later on our regional manager reported. See, this is the way you internalize the corporate values yourself. And I am telling you, in doing that, our ordinary people are a notch better than extraordinary. As to my felicity of language, this is because I Kurkangatila Padichada, Malayalam mediatila. അത് വായനാശീലം കൊണ്ട് മാത്രം വന്നു ചേർന്ന ഒരു സിദ്ധിയാണെന്ന് വേണമെങ്കിൽ പറയാം. അത്രയേ ഉള്ളൂ. പിന്നെ ഈ നമ്മൾ ഓരോരോ സ്റ്റേജ് ഇൻ ലൈഫ് വെൻ യു സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ലൈക്കിംഗ് യുവർ ഓൺ വോയിസ്, യു നോ. So any opportunity, Mohandas gave me this opportunity. I don't leave any opportunity to get an audience like you. I will run because I like my own voice. And I think I make sense when I speak.
Excuse me, sir. After your very sublime presentation, my question may seem a little out of place.
Yeah.
But to have an expert like you this evening is very rare. So my question is regarding banking. What I understand is that there is going to be a major banking crisis in the world. It's not question if, the question is only when. And what will be the position of gold? I understand that India and Iran have already started started using gold to purchase oil from Iran. In that case, will we go back to a gold standard? Will dollar go back to a gold standard? What is your opinion on this banking crisis that is likely to take place?
There is no crisis as far as the banking segment is concerned today. Now the crisis is in United States is to grow GDP growth level about 2.4%. This year, 12-13 financial year. Euroland consisting of, excepting Germany, you take France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Greece, etc. put together, all told they will grow by 0.6%. India will grow around 7%, China may grow around 8 to 9%, some say even more than 9%. So what we are facing today is the problem of the Euroland. And United States, because of the elections, a lot of things are not coming out. The unemployment rate has come down. That is why you see the dollar sometimes appreciating. But the greatest problem the nation face, all the nations face today is the crisis in Europe. Excepting Germany, no country is in a position to say that we are healthy. Our total debt to GDP our total debt, that is the total sovereign government debt to the GDP. GDP, as all of us know, is the total value of goods and services produced in the country. The GDP ratio of India is just around 58 to 60%. It might move up to 65 to 70%. There is no country in Europe, except in Germany, which is having the ratio less than 100. So their problem is they have all borrowed right, left and center. And the economy is in a state where what has happened in Greece is precisely the reason. Their debt to GDP ratio reached 160%. So the imposition took place, lot of cutting of wages, etc. happened. Now, Italy is in the same boat as Greece with marginal difference. You are looking at Spain also and Portugal also following suit unless bailing out takes place. Now, lot of money has been given by the European Central Bank by easing of the what you call as monetary easing. So quantitative easing they say. Because of all this, we are in a position, not in a position to say whether these countries will be able to emerge out of the problem. Greece up to 2020, you can write off Greece. That is true. Now I will answer that part of it. This is all creation of artificial money. Now, you asked the question whether we should go back to the gold standard. Unless and until, see the euro, the only reserve currency you can think of now is only Chinese renminbi in terms of its strength, etc. But unfortunately, because of the political reasons, they don't want just to be elevated to that. So you have the US dollar as still the currency of choice. The gold standard was removed, and what is USA today? USA is living on somebody else's money. If China tomorrow decides that we will not buy US Treasury securities, America will be in doldrums. Similar is the case with European countries. If they are raising money by floating government security, which the various banks, etc., are going and buying. Now, because of this quantitative easing related things, there is no further asset creation. There is no creation of what you call as the means to repay. No productive assets are getting created. Now, Europe is a typical case, my friends will bear with me, of a nation painting itself into a corner. The average Frenchman works 35 hours a day, 35 hours a week. You know how many hours we work? Six days a week, 48 to 50 hours. Now they have a big, robust social security system to take care of those who are in the unemployment. And the underlying reason why all this is happening is because the life expectancy is going up. No more of productive age people are coming into the economic sphere, as is the case with our country, which is the young nation today. So a small working population is supporting a large geriatric problem of old people. And that is why Europe is in dumps today. The biggest tragedy of all this, we with the average age of 35, of 65% of the population having an average age less than 35, we had the biggest advantage to seize the opportunity. That we are not doing. Policy paralysis. So that reminds me of a joke. Mr. Manmohan Singh went to his dentist. So dentist said, Mr. Manmohan, this is the dentist that you have come to. Please open your mouth.
I think it is time to conclude. Thank you very much, sir, for the very informative and inspiring talk.
Thank you.
In fact, we got this wonderful speaker here today only because of the persuasive power of Mr. Mohan Das. On behalf of Calicut Management Association, I thank Mr. Mohan Das also. Now, presentation of memento. I request Founder President of Calicut Management Association, Mr. V.K.S. Menon, to hand over the painting of National Award winner artist Francis Kodanganda to our speaker, please. Felicitation by Mr. V.K.S. Menon.